Hey everybody, it's me, Maris, and I'm glad that you're here. And guess what? This is going to be a well, it's live for me because I'm pre-recording it, but it's going to be the actual video of Confessions of an Eclectic Healer. And this is episode 11, and I'm really psyched about doing this. I've been working on it all day and having a lot of fun with it, and so welcome. So my name is Maris. This is Confessions of an Eclectic Healer, episode 11, and we're actually going a little bit off of the beaten path. You know, normally in the Confessions of an Eclectic Healer, I'm talking about my path, my journey, where I started from, the mishaps, the craziness, all of those things that I've experienced. And I wanted to go in a little bit of a different direction. So we're going to do this as a video instead of a audio blast or a video audio blast, whatever I call them, or a traditional podcast. And I'm actually here at my urban homestead. So you can hear one of my dogs. That's little Lucy. She's my partner in love there. She's very loving and kind, and Lucy's singing songs for us with, looks like Cisco's trying to act like a fool. But we're over here at my urban homestead here in Oklahoma City, and I live in the heart of the city, which is really pretty cool. And I live in the barrio, which is, I live in a very Latino neighborhood. We do have some other ethnic groups that are here. We have a lot of Native Americans. Woohoo! My husband's Native, and we have the Hispanics. We have a very big Latino community. And then we also have, of course, our whites and our blacks, and we're very much a melting pot, and some Asian neighborhood through here. But we're all a very peaceful neighborhood, pretty much. We did a lot of struggles, but we're in a groovy place. And so tonight, we are recording this from the urban homestead. I like to call it Idlewild Herbs, or the Idlewild Herb Garden. We grow a lot of herbs. And other vegetables and etc. And I have some very beautiful plants that we'll probably do another episode out here, because I'm really digging the vibe of being in my own personal jungle. I've got this big beautiful apple tree behind me, and we're actually going to be picking some apples. They're getting big and beautiful, and we've had some apples that went out to the Norman farm, and they did a lot of baking, and they were like phenomenal. So welcome again to Confessions of an Eclectic Healer. This is episode 11. And again, we're going off in a little bit different direction, and it's more of current day stuff. People have this idea about healers that we're in a perfect Zen mode and place all the time. And as much as I would love to be in that Zen mode all the time, we're not always achieving that. We do have struggles and obstacles. We are affected by the energies and the vibes around us, and we do react. We're human, at least most of us are, or we might be hybrids at least. But sometimes we go through stagnation and periods of, ooh, just like you. And right now we're in this Mercury retrograde, and Mercury retrograde started in the beginning of July, and it ends at the end of July. In fact, on August 1st, I believe, is the new shift, or the new whatever it will be. And this Mercury retrograde has actually been fairly uneventful until like the last couple of weeks, man. It's like these last few weeks, there's been this great shift that's occurring. Not only are we ourselves globally, are we having a shift, but there's also shifts that people are having within themselves. Those that have been asleep are now woke, and those that have been woke are now awakening, and those who are awakened are beginning to engage, and those that are engaged are beginning to enlighten, and then those that are enlightened are beginning to have ascension. Now, I'm not talking about transition, ascension kind, but we're talking about the transmutation or that spiritual in nature where we have this greater level of discernment. And sometimes we go in and out of that higher level that we've achieved until we find a way to balance that. And then once we get it balanced, we are able to develop some growth and find that sense of stability there. You know, the Aramaic look at like enlightenment and engagement as being in season in your spirit. And sometimes we go out of season. And it may not be the entire self, but just an aspect of it. And as a community, they would come together to work on bringing everybody back into season. I have a friend named Milt, and I love Milt. He's a really groovy guy. And when I first met Milt, he was in the stage of being woke. And then as he started reaching out and reading and learning and exploring and kind of opening up the boxes and pulling out some crystals and dusting them off, he's becoming awakened. And so it's really powerful to watch him grow in that manner. So anyway, let's go back to Mercury retrograde. You know, Mercury retrograde technically is this time of, you know, like miscommunication, misconnections. How about we're not on the same page? A lot of difficulties. Oh, there's Cisco being crazy. Not being on the same page, having difficulties connecting and engaging with each other, and not a good time to make major decisions. Not a good time to make major decisions. Okay, so we're going to have the choir playing with us behind there. It looks like they're working on some equipment. So, but we'll try to keep this in a mellowy place here for us. So we know that we're in the ending part of Mercury retrograde. It ends by August 1st. July 31st, we have a black moon. And with all of this in mind, let me just tell you, we got good groovy things coming, folks. Beautiful blessings, good harvest, good things. Just be calm and ride the waves of these last 4 days. Now, Mercury retrograde has really had a time on my scale of grooviness. Yeah, I've had a lot of difficulties with it, and I think it started with Bertha Madras, and she is a former drug czar for the U.S. government. And she posts this tweet about the evils of cannabis and how it incites criminal behavior and something along of all these different negative behaviors, and they're all attributed to having of using marijuana or cannabis. And so I counter with a rebuttal of asking her to cite actual cases of a person who's solely on cannabis committing horrific crimes. So my criteria was no history of mental health issues or abuse, traumas, PTSD, no mental health, no other health issues or medications on board, or other illicit or street drugs or street drug use as well. And I probably repeated that about 3 or 4 times, and she would always post up something else, some kind of, it was like an article back from like the 1900s in India with cannabis. And I'm like, look, that's not what I'm talking about, because A, I know they had a lot of alcoholism during that time. I am talking about a person with a negative past history of committing horrific crimes while using cannabis or marijuana. And so, long story short, she ends up blocking me, and I get a guy from Europe who's into the big pharma, proponent, thumbs up on big pharma. And so he wants to play around and dog with me, and I'm like, that's cool, whatever. I'm in a state of yawn. I'm bored by now. The problem is that I've engaged in some really hateful banter, and I'm laughing about it and kind of enjoying it to a degree, and I must be getting some kind of great crazy buzz off of this negative vibe. because I continue to do it. And the near instances of like shouting out some 4-letter words in a bitch, what I call bitch banter, I'm like, I'm thriving on it, and it's crazy. I should not be digging this vibe. I am all about peace, love, and happiness, and I want people to feel wonderful in their life. So, I start having a couple of more tete-a-tetes on Twitter, and one was with a young Turk, and I'm like, she's wanting to talk to me, or shim, I'm not really sure if it's a guy or a girl. The picture's very ambiguous. And I'm really kind of feeling sorry for this person because they're going on about how I should embrace the universal health care. And I'm feeling really sorry for her or him. And I start getting like this little image in my head here. And they're wearing a beret like Shay. And I'm like, wow, okay. Strange, but I'm like kind of arguing with them. And I have a long history working in healthcare. I have like 30 years in healthcare. Plus, on top of that, I taught healthcare and practice care management and medical law and ethics. So I have a pretty good understanding of what's going on and how it works. And I'm just telling you, universal health care is not a good plan. Obamacare is not a good plan. And there's not much that you can say to prove me otherwise. I'm always willing to hear, but not a lot that you could say. So I ended this conversation with this person and moved on. And then guess what? Jeffrey Epstein steps into my life during Mercury retrograde. What the heck is going on? And anything about him sets me off. I cannot stand Jeffrey Epstein, and he is the epitome, the personification of the devil. Yes, you might as well throw some horns, a tail, a pitchfork, because that's Jeffrey in my point of view. The man has scaled walls and created chaos and mayhem in many, many ways, and I don't like him at all, and he comes into our life because now Jeffrey starts to expose a lot of the seediness of the elites. He's a bad man, and he's done bad things, and he's got a lot of victims, direct and indirect. Some are survivors and some have transitioned. And so I send them great healing, especially to the survivors. I send you great healing, and I share that with you. And know that I'm always open to help you in your journey in healing. Anyway, so I respond to a post, and I think it was Mike Cernovich posted something about Alan Dershowitz, I guess. I'm having a brain spasm here. And Alan has claimed that he wanted full disclosure of Jeffrey Epstein files in this case, whereas in other things have indicated that that was not exactly what his motivation was. And so there was a little banter in between them indirectly. And I make a comment, and I said, I'm like a volcano about to erupt. I can't wait until these demon rats go down, and I mean that. But my volcano is very softened now. Anyway, so I make this comment, and a hater pops up and wants to take me down a hate trail. And I traveled with him for a while, and our conversation became very hateful, very rude. And I began to feel as if I was in a personal relationship. This has been a couple of, people I've encountered, and I'm going to call them haters. And in this, man, we are just not very loving towards each other. And I'm feeling like I'm in a personal relationship between these in these tweeters and their tweets, and I'm like, this is not good at all, I gotta back off. Thus, I decided I needed to break up with them. And so I said, we need to break up. It's me, not you. Isn't that the infamous line? It's all about me, not you. Some of them I was like, I'm bored. And I don't like that feeling. And so I need to move on. But it's me, not you. I'm breaking up. And it became this cycle of hateful banter, back and forth. And in real life, we would have broken up. We would not have been together at this point of hateful banter, because I don't like to engage in that. And I have to try to make myself distant or muted from that. And I felt, it's wise to mute a conversation than a person, because people can have really good days when they say insightful things, and I can imbibe those words that create a positive vibe, and I can easily turn off the negative and disengage, and we can revisit that again. So another discussion of hateful banter arises, and I have to break up again, and I start feeling guilty. Shish, I'm the common denominator. The common denominator in all of this nonsense, this chaos, this minutia. So that means that I have engaged in it willingly, and I'm beginning to feel bitter, and I'm totally on the offense mode that I need to cut this bitching vibe out. Not the cool bitchin', that was bitchin' vibe, but the bitching vibe. That banter is no bueno, and it's not good for your spirit. So this morning I open up to Twitter, and I follow this man from the United Kingdom. His name is Martin Geddes. Martin Geddes, Geddes. And he's a very, very groovy, interesting MAGA philosopher. And he blogs and writes and tweets and photographs about perspectives in current events. And sometimes he does like tech stuff, because I think that's his day gig. But I follow him for being the philosopher that he is. And he tweets. And Martin Geddes tweets. And this is how it goes. He states, one of my personal challenges is not going for the jugular in online discussions with those in the cult of the official narrative. I love that. Cult of the official narrative. I'm quite good with words, he states, and I know how to be biting. Quote, I'm so sorry that the data points and opinions offend you. Would you like more offense? End quote. And my response was, Martin, there are days that I experience poor impulse control and just spend the morning writing them hateful texts and tweets. Then I have to go and clear all of that nonsense before I even get into the studio to work with my clients. How do I resist that temptation? And Martin tweets in response to me. He says, the only way to rid temptation is to yield to it. And he quotes, I can resist everything but temptation. End of quote. Oscar Wilde. So he quotes Oscar Wilde. I like Oscar Wilde. He's really cool. The Importance of Being Earnest is a very awesome play. And he says, in the rest of his tweet, he says, you have to put yourself into a context where there's no temptation. And I'm like, Martin, oh my God. There's always temptation. I'm on social media. I do podcasts. I make videos. I do readings. There's always temptation for snarkiness. Always. Now, I don't tweet that, but I'm thinking that. And then up comes this other response from another person, and I've never seen this other person's before, but I follow them now. And it's Sky Watching, Skeye Watching. And Sky Watching tweets, I have to ask myself each day, what and who do I want to invest myself in? What will benefit my soul and promote my growth? As hate steals from my soul and reduces my moral bank account. Yes, that's how important that is. We've got some craziness. Ooh, that was like a freak, right? I'm kind of like, ooh. Reduces my moral bank account. And at the end of the day, walking away leaves me more enriched. Let's balance this a little bit. That was a trip, okay. Leaves me more enriched. They, meaning all of that banter, are not worth tearing down all that I've built up. And man, I started crying at this point. You know, I was like, that was the most insightful, beautiful piece of discernment ever shared with me. The most beautiful, insightful piece of discernment, thank you, Sky Watching, that has ever been shared with me before. Thus today, and in Reiki, we believe in things as just for today. And so, thus today, I have to disconnect from that negative vibe and choose a different manner to express my beliefs. I can agree to disagree, but I will no longer choose to be in that hateful banter, and I'll tell you, that's very, very difficult. The last couple of people or haters, whatever you want to call it, that I had my hateful banter with, I invited them. And this is what I said to them. I said, if they were local to me, if we were living in the same town or city or pretty close in vicinity, would they meet me for brunch and continue to have the very same conversation? And they responded with those little emojis, or little icon things, those little emojis that were the laughter with the tear coming out. And I think one of them even had like the vomit coming out. And it became really apparent to me at that very moment, it became so apparent to me that they were shills. And they were doing this probably as paid, or maybe it was part of their agreement, you know, with some club or group, I don't know. But they really weren't genuine in who they were and where they were coming from. Because it was really just about spreading some hate and belittling. In fact, it was a lot of what I call the Saul Alinsky, 101. Let's do the flip, or the Nexium flip. And it was kind of a bummer. So I just decided that I would much rather spend the rest of my Mercury retrograde nourishing my soul with my chocolate smoothies and hanging out in the urban homestead and going to the lake and just enjoying things and grounding and earthing. You know, the chocolate smoothies are so worth it. I have vowed to have a vegetarian meal, one meal a day. And the most important thing that I remembered about my chocolate smoothies, cocoa is a bean. So I hope you have a most wonderful rest of your day or your evening, wherever you are. And remember to try to keep that positive vibe going and not engage in other people's hateful banter. If you can, do a random act of kindness, even if it's just giving somebody a smile. You just might make their day totally worthwhile. Thank you for joining me with the video version, yay, of Confessions of an Eclectic Healer. Episode 11, Off the Beaten Track. Peace and have a beautiful, beautiful